Hi, this is a response to both the post by npage 85 about the God versus free will paradox, as well as lmorovan's response to it. Um, First of all, I saw the graphic that you did, and I had to say something because it's so close to my own theory of time. Um, but with a few differences, because basically you say that where the timeline changes is where we make decisions, and while I think that's true to a certain extent, um, I don't think that it would be true um, alone. I don't think it would be true in and of itself, because we are creatures that we're created by a really long sequence of causes and effects. So there's a really long chain of events that led us to think the way that we do and react the way that we do. Um, but at the same time, I think that there are instances which which we don't know how to deal with, and that's where our decision making comes in and our free will comes in. And for the moment, I'm just gonna leave God out of this. I'm gonna bring that back in at the end. But for the moment, I'm just going to talk about a deterministic versus a non-deterministic theory of time itself, because that's essentially what the problem is. The whole free will problem is a problem with determinism in any sense of the word, be it because of God or because of causality. But okay, lmorovan, you said something really interesting that I also really agree with, in that there are no instances. There's no moments that exist in time. It's just one series of movements. However, I can't agree that there is no present, because the present is all that we experience. I would say that time itself is tracked by movement through space, and the reason that we're experiencing the present right now is because of movement in time. Um, and so, going back to Aquinas's argument of the uncaused cause, there can't be an infinite series, and so there must have been some uncaused cause that started it all. I look at that argument and just see it as saying, if there was one uncaused cause, then there could potentially be a potentially infinite amount of uncaused causes. So random occurrences happen. And so if random occurrences happen, and they can happen at any moment in time, then the reason that we experience the present is because something random happened which caused time to change. And so we're currently traveling along the series of causes and effects that stemmed out from that change in time. It's possible that it could have been the original random occurrence, but I believe that incorporation of random occurrences over the timeline helps to explain how we have free will, because if a random occurrence happens, and a series of causes and effects will lead out from that, and so there will be kind of a ripple along the timeline and changes that will occur. And if it's like a physical object, it won't will still just travel straight along that chain of causes and effects, because there's no decision to be made. But when it reaches someone who is able to act and has to do something about it, since we're creatures that have been created over such a long period of time, of such a long chain of causes and effects, if something random happens, then we won't necessarily know how to deal with it. And so the way that how we decide to deal with those random occurrences is what causes the change in the timeline. And that basically explains how God can still know the future. We can still live in a deterministic timeline, but since that timeline is constantly fluctuating, God can know the future as it is, but he doesn't necessarily know whether or not that future is going to change. And he doesn't necessarily know how we're going to react to a change if it occurs, until it does occur. So yeah, I basically, the way I picture my theory of time is a lot similar to the way you drew that tree um, of decisions, except that if you picture that tree as a cause and those the limbs as effects that led out from that cause, instead of possible decisions, just think of them all as happening, not decisions made by any person, but just different causes, different effects that came from different causes. Then if something happens that affects one of those limbs, then that limb can branch off differently, and so it will be in a constant state of movement. And so the reason that we experience the present is because we're experiencing movement. Nothing exists without movement, and so our experience of what's going on is movement in time.